Hi everyone, it's Braden here at Airless Cool 9. We have another video on the 2024 Player's Handbook. This time it's about the new cleric. So we are going to give the video a watch and we'll see how it is.
Hello everyone, today we are talking about clerics. You know, those folks that keep you alive. Plenty new things in all the classes and the subclasses. That is also true for clerics.
One of the things that we wanted to make sure we did with the cleric, which is also a very popular class, is, as we've done with all of the classes, protect their core identity while looking for ways to amp up the fun, particularly for clerics and others who focus sometimes on healing, although of course many of us have played clerics who are all about smiting or something other than healing. But we wanted to make sure that anyone who is focusing on healing in the game really could feel good about it. And that's why we talked in our video about spells, about the buffs to many of the game's healing spells. And so clerics in particular are going to really feel that improvement and feel like that if they decide to spend their turn or part of their turn in battle helping their friends or themselves get back into the fight, we're hoping they're going to feel far better about dedicating their playtime to that healing activity. Now, when it comes to the class itself, right away at first level, people are going to get a brand new feature called Divine Order. Both the Druid and the Cleric now have this feature at first level that allows them to decide if they want to go more in the spellcasting direction or lean a little bit more into the armor and weapon direction. Now, Clerics and Druids both have at the baseline sort of decent weapon and armor capability and are very solid spellcasters. So this choice is really a choice of emphasis or of spice. Whichever one you choose, you're still going to have, again, decent armor and weapons as well as very formidable spellcasting. If you decide to go in Divine Order with the new Protector option, it means right at first level, you're going to start with proficiency with martial weapons and heavy armor. This is how you can make the classic first edition cleric decked out in heavy armor and wielding a mace. But we've also acknowledged that over the decades, many clerics have instead leaned more in a kind of robe-wearing, divine magic wielding aesthetic direction. And so the Thaumaturge option supports that aesthetic by giving you an extra cantrip and also making it so that, and again, this is similar to what we did in the Druid, buffing some of your ability checks with a bonus equal to your wisdom modifier. And in the case of the cleric, the ability checks that get buffed are your intelligence, arcana, and religion checks, making it so that the thaumaturge, even if their intelligence isn't super high, can tap into their divine magic to give them a sense of information about either general magic in the form of arcana or about religion.
Perfect.
Now, in spellcasting, which is also at first level, there is an important change there where now clerics, every time they level up, can swap out one of their cantrips. Now you can say, oh, okay, I'm not using this cantrip as much as I thought, and so you can change. At second level, clerics get their iconic Channel Divinity feature, just as before. It still includes the option to turn undead, which again goes all the way back to first edition of clerics channeling their divine might to drive back the forces of undeath.
They should leave those undead alone. It's not fair.
But we have also now added a brand new channel divinity option for all clerics called Divine Spark. And this is a really fun channel divinity option where the cleric decides if they're going to channel this raw divine power either to harm someone or help them. So you can either deal damage with it or heal somebody with it. And we did this because looking over not only the subclasses for the cleric in this book, but as well as the other subclasses that have come out for the cleric over the years, clerics, depending on subclass choice, have had sort of varying use for their channel divinity. Like if you are in a campaign with few or no undead, turn undead does you no good.
Yeah.
And then some subclasses have channel divinity options that are useful every session, and then other subclasses have channel divinity options that are useful less frequently. With that reality in mind, we created Divine Spark to give every cleric, regardless of subclass, a channel divinity option that is likely to be useful in every single session of play, because pretty much every session, at least one point, you're going to want to deal damage or heal somebody. Unless you're having a very peaceful shopping montage session.
Yeah, right. That's fair.
Unless, the cleric discovers that the shopkeep is undead and they need to drive them away with Turn Undead. Now, that classic option, Turn Undead, it itself has been redesigned. As much as we enjoy the classic Turn Undead of the undead who are affected scampering far away, we wanted this to be a bit less disruptive for the cleric, because it is often not useful for the cleric for the undead to now be half a mile away when it runs out.
Right, and spread around the map, yeah.
Exactly. So Turn Undead still, if it affects an undead creature, it still shuts them down in terms of, being able to do much of use for them, but no longer has them scrambling from, here to the next town. And we found that not only in the Unearthed Arcana process, but also in our own play tests, that this new version of Turn Undead is a lot of fun.
And this is like a debuff or damage, or?
So what it does now is the undead creature is incapacitated and frightened for 1 minute. And it does try to move as far as it can from you on its turns, but it's no longer dashing.
Yeah, okay.
And it also it's clearer with the rest of the system how it's behaving, because it has now the incapacitated condition as well as the frightened condition. And those two things were implied before, and now it's explicit.
Okay.
The new version of Turn Undead is then.
Okay, so new things so far are pretty nice. I do like the changes to Turn Undead. It does make it to where it's doing what they want it to do. So the undead will still move away on their turns because they're frightened, but they won't dash because they have no actions or reactions because they're incapacitated. So yeah, that works as intended. Divine Spark is nice. Having the option to either heal or deal damage occasionally with your channel divinity, because you might not be able to do it otherwise, is nice, and it just gives you more options to do that if you run out of spells or actions. So yeah, I like it so far.
Then buffed later at level 5 by another new feature called Seer Undead. And with this feature, you now have the option, when you use Turn Undead, to blast the undead creatures that you're turning with radiant energy, deal damage to them. This is a way for you to have your Turn Undead have an offensive
That's seer
capability
undead.
without requiring the undead to hit a particular challenge rating threshold to be destroyed by your turn undead. So the 2014 version of turn undead, when you got to higher level, would just simply destroy certain undead creatures. And what we found is the problem with that is it was this very kind of all or nothing thing. And then that also meant that you gained no benefit against creatures that were not within that very specific challenge rating range. We replaced that primarily because we wanted to give you a buff that you were happy to have no matter what the CR was of the undead creature. And so now you have this ability to, like, you don't have to worry about what the CR is. Once you have it, you have the option of blasting it with radiant damage. And the advantage of this new feature is eventually this radiant damage will get high enough that you will still pretty much automatically destroy very low CR undead. So you will often, particularly if you have lucky damage rolls for the radiant damage, still incinerate the undead that you're turning. But even when you don't do that, you're still going to be able to pump out some radiant damage, even against that high CR lich.
Yeah, perfect. Makes sense.
Now at level 7 in the cleric,
that's an okay change. I'm okay with damage. Damage is nice.
We also have a new feature called Blessed Strikes. And Blessed Strikes is a replacement for two different features that appeared previously in subclasses. Cleric subclasses in the past tended to have either a feature called Divine Strike or one called Potent Spellcasting. Divine Strike pushed the cleric toward weapon use, and Potent Spellcasting, it's in the name, buffed the cleric spellcasting, specifically the cleric's cantrips.
Now you can choose.
And because we now let you at first level decide which of those directions you want to lean in, we wanted you to then, following on from that, get to make a choice between Divine Strike and Potent Spellcasting at level 7, rather than automatically giving you one of those as part of a particular subclass. And we found that doing it the old way kind of pigeonholed certain subclasses in ways that wasn't always how the players wanted to play that subclass. You know, we might have decided that a particular subclass got Divine Strike rather than Potent Spellcasting, but the player who chose that subclass might decide, but I'm not interested in wearing armor and being in melee. I want to actually hang back, and would really have enjoyed having Potent Spellcasting instead. So with that in mind, we've put the power in the player's hands to decide which of those directions that you go in. We also...
Player choice is always better.
This is a case where we have a note in the feature itself that if you happen to take the new version of the cleric, but wed it to a subclass from an older book, you do not get both the Potent Spellcasting or Divine Strike from the subclass as well as whatever you choose from the base class. You just get one.
Perfect.
And that's explained right here in the cleric itself.
Okay.
Now, when we get to level 10, we have a new version of Divine Intervention. Now, previously, Divine Intervention was a style of game design that I sometimes refer to as Mother May I game design, where the player basically had to ask the DM's permission for something to happen. And also, this was locked behind a die roll that would determine whether or not your feature even did anything. So our goal with the new Divine Intervention is we wanted to give the cleric certainty that their class feature would actually do something. And so in the new design, you just simply use it, and you choose any cleric spell of level 5 or lower that doesn't require a reaction to cast, and you cast it. It's that simple. And then you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So what this means is once you reach level 10, you as a cleric, regardless of what cleric spells you have prepared, have in your back pocket the ability to pick any cleric spell a 5th level or lower and decide, I'm casting that now. So it still serves the function that Divine Intervention had before, which is sort of fishing for a divine get-out-of-jail-free card.
Yeah.
And I think the feedback we got on this was very positive. And what's also really nice about it is when you cast the spell, you don't expend a spell slot, and you do not need material components.
Yeah.
This means, yes, you could choose Raise Dead, which is a 5th level spell, and cast it, calling on Divine Intervention to raise someone from death. And we designed this very specifically to make that happen, because what else feels like Divine Intervention than bringing back somebody from the dead?
You are going to ruin the diamond economy in D&D. All these NPCs that sell diamonds are just...
in all of their shops outside all the temples in D&D cities.
Yeah, exactly 500 gold piece worth of diamond.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Now, at level 14, we improve Blessed Strikes, and so whichever option you chose earlier at level 7, Divine Strike or Potent Spellcasting, it gets even better. And then finally, at level 20, we have Greater Divine Intervention, which now lets you choose the Wish spell. And the Wish spell, as the Divine Intervention that you're reaching out for, and gives you all of the magical flexibility that Wish gives a spellcaster. And the Wish spell has been expanded in the spell chapter. It has several new built-in options that do not risk you triggering the
monkey's paw effect.
The fatigue that Wish can impose upon a person.
Yeah.
And it also has further guidance in the spell of what happens to you if you try to mess with gods, or even worse, with the Lady of Pain.
Yeah.
Like our other dedicated spellcasting classes, the spell list has been expanded, not only because of new spells that are in the book, like Summon Celestial, but also because of spells that were already in the game in 2014 that clerics now have access to.
I think this is going to be underrated, because being able to cast any spell on your spell list without a material component means you could cast some crazy spells, especially once you're doing it through the Wish spell. But then again, that's a level 20 thing, so if you do get to that point, you're already going leaps and bounds beyond what is normal. But I think that will be a rather useful feature, because there are some very costly components for certain spells. So I feel like that will have some use. And it's a more defined use than it originally was.
And our cleric subclasses definitely also then get to make use of the bolstered spell selection because of their domain spells. So shall we dive into the life domain?
Yeah, let's get into the
we're done with the whole base class. Life domain.
life domain. This is kind of the classic cleric.
The life domain cleric is meant to be the preeminent healer in the game. I often like to tell people that if they really love playing a healer and they like the aesthetic of the cleric, the life domain is fantastic. You really cannot go wrong choosing this if you want to be a character who's all about helping other people. We took the really excellent features in this subclass and we fine-tuned them, altering some of the spell selection in the domain spell list so that the life domain cleric would be even more on theme in terms of their healing prowess. And we've even done subtle tweaks that people might not notice immediately. Like, for instance, Preserve Life now actually works on undead and constructs.
Oh, fantastic.
The fact that a number of healing spells did not work on undead and constructs actually created a number of design headaches for benevolent undead or constructs that might be in a player's group, either because they summoned them or they became undead but are still, heroic.
That's nice.
Or they are constructs.
Yeah. We ran into this with the Reborn lineage at the time.
Exactly. And so people will notice that not just in Preserve Life, but many places in the player's handbook where before certain healing effects didn't work on undead and constructs, that has largely been removed. And instead, when the monster manual comes out, people will find that certain monsters, particularly monsters that are made of like shadow stuff from the negative energy plane, we are exploring it being a feature of the monster themselves. It isn't even that they can't be healed, it's that they're actually harmed by healing spells.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense.
And so that actually is allowing us to bring back some flavor that has existed in earlier editions of healers being able to turn their healing spells on certain kind of fell creatures. But for that, people will have to wait for the new monster manual.
That's awesome, though. That's a great change.
But in the meantime, you will also be able to restore life to, say, because again, I know you as the ever lover of warlocks.
Yes.
If the warlock has a skeleton in the group, the cleric can now heal their friend's skeleton.
I will laugh. That is perfect. That brings us to the light domain, another popular subclass for the cleric.
The light domain has had quite a bit of revision within it. Part of that was based on us wanting to make it a little less one note and being all about fire.
What's wrong with that?
Partly because the light domain has always been meant to represent sort of divine illumination.
Yeah.
Which fire is certainly a fun expression of that.
Right.
But it's not the fire domain. It's the light domain.
Yeah.
And so we've preserved some of the, tasty, fiery bits. So, don't worry, Fireball is still here. But we wanted to also bring in some spells in the domain list that are about vision, about, and I mean sort of metaphorically about vision. And so there's some divination spells here that are about wiping away falsehood, that sort of thing. And so that's why, you'll see things here like scrying and see invisibility, that sort of thing. Arcane Eye, these are here. We also made it so that the level 3 warding flare feature is usable right away whether you're the person being targeted or somebody else. It used to be you had to wait to a higher level to have the I help my friend version of it. You now get that right away.
That's nice.
Then later at level 6, when you get improved warding flare, when you use warding flare to protect somebody, you now also can give them temporary hit points. And you also now regain all uses of warding flare whenever you finish a short or a long rest.
Oh, that's fantastic.
So
that's very good.
The light domain cleric is going to be able to use their signature ability, warding flare, more often, and it's even more potent than it was before. We've also taken a look at Corona of Light, and we've now made it so that it imposes disadvantage on saving throws against your Radiance of the Dawn, in addition to any spells that deal fire or radiant damage. We wanted there to be more internal synergy here because we didn't want it to just benefit your spells, but then you have your channel divinity option to just emit a whole bunch of light and have it not benefit. So this also is a theme you and I have returned to in these videos of more synergy, more feeling like you can combine your abilities with your friends' abilities, but also, very importantly, combine your own abilities with each other in new ways. And I'm excited to see how people combine things that we haven't even imagined yet.
Yeah, that is. I'm doing a lot of like combing through this book already and trying to come up with different combinations. That's part of the fun.
Now, next up, we have the Trickery Domain.
I love the Trickery Domain. This is one of the best. I love this subclass. I love the theme of it. And this is, the spell list was always fantastic for the Trickery Domain, but now the functionality of like the keystone abilities are really, really good.
And the Trickery Domain, in many ways, is the foil to the Light Domain. Many of the subclass quartets in the book are often actually two duos.
Yeah.
And in the Cleric, the Trickery Domain, which is all about illusion and sort of pranks,
Deception,
and being the trickster, is the counter to the light of revelation, seeing everything as it really is. And then similarly, the Life Domain Cleric has its foil in this class in the form of the War Domain Cleric. One being all about restoring vitality to people, and the other about destroying things. And so, the Cleric, we have this fun axis going on with these four subclasses. Now, the Trickery Domain, as you said, got some really nice updates. And it starts right away in Blessing of the Trickster, which now the Cleric can actually use on themselves, which they used to not be able to. And it used to last just for an hour, but now it lasts until the end of your next long rest.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Nice. Which is a really nice way to ensure that people can use this for maybe extended infiltrations. Particularly if the Cleric uses it on somebody else, and it wouldn't be around to, in the past, refresh it after it wore off after an hour.
Oh yeah, that's a very good point,
So Invoke Duplicity, which is of course, the signature ability of this subclass, got improved in a number of ways in both the base feature as well as in the improvements that come later at level 17. One is you can now summon up your illusory duplicate as a bonus action instead of an action.
Perfect.
And you do not have to concentrate on it anymore.
Thank you.
Because
that was so difficult,
The combination before of it taking your entire action and you having to concentrate on it meant you were in some ways being shut down in two ways. You were spending a whole turn bringing it out, and then you couldn't at the same time have any of the Cleric's really nice concentration spells going simultaneously. And so we wanted to address that when we revisited this subclass, so that the subclass felt like it was playing nice with the rest of the class, and not shutting your own class down through its use.
And again, that is a lot of the change in design is what you want to do during a turn happens so much faster.
Yes. In the higher level, Improved Duplicity up at level 17, that used to create multiple duplicates. You now just have one duplicate. But what we've now done is that your duplicate now assists not just you, but also your allies when it comes to conferring advantage on attack rolls. And when the illusion vanishes, it now heals. You can have it heal somebody next to it. We wanted, again, this illusion to be more cleric-y, so that it truly felt like you're not just a trickster, you are a trickster cleric. And so that's why we brought in more of this element of you being able to assist your team in addition to assisting yourself.
There's another really juicy add-on to this ability.
Yes, between level 3 and 17, there is now a brand new feature, and that is whenever you take the bonus action to create the illusion, you can teleport, swapping places with the illusion. And this not only gives you some really fun mobility, but it makes it so that the tricksy cleric can mess with enemies even more, because if suddenly you're swapping positions, they think you're over there, but you're actually over here.
Yeah.
And then on top of it, we modified the domain spell list, and that's something we did in all of them to try to make the list of spells that you have from this subclass as thematic and as fun as possible. So finally, we have the war domain.
Yeah.
The war domain has been improved across the board. One of the ways that you'll see that immediately is
So Trickery Cleric sounds good. It's gotten a lot of improvements, which is nice.
in Guided Strike. You can now, right from the start, use this to benefit other people. It used to be that you could only use it on yourself when you first got it. And this is for people who don't remember, this is the channel divinity where you can just give yourself a gigantic +10 to hit.
Yeah.
And people have seen Omen Drawn do this many times in Acquisitions Incorporated. But you had to wait till a much higher level to be able to use it on other people.
Yeah.
Now you can use it on yourself or other people right away.
Nice.
Oh, wow, okay.
And we did this similar to some of the changes we made in the Trickery Domain. We did this so that this would be more cleric-y right from the start. The whole cleric class is about interactions with other party members, because even if you're a cleric who isn't focusing on healing, clerics still have a number of abilities that otherwise buff their friends. And so we're always looking for ways to make sure that even when clerics might be leaning more in a sort of damage dealing direction, that there still is an interaction element when it comes to their buddies. Now, the advantage of doing this also means we free up a class feature slot where we can then put in something new, so that you're not having an entire feature eaten up by now you can use this on your friends.
Yeah.
So there's a double advantage to us making a change like this. We also, in the War Priest ability, which you get at 3rd level along with Guided Strike and your domain spells, we have made it so that you can now make an unarmed strike with the bonus action attack, not just a weapon strike. Okay. This is actually something we've done in a number of places in the new Player's Handbook, where previous abilities that only worked with weapons now also work with unarmed strikes. We're doing this not only for the sake of multi-classing, but also because we know that people, regardless of what class they have, sometimes like the fantasy of playing an unarmed character. So we wanted to support that. We have also made it so that you regain the uses of your War Priest ability when you complete a short or a long rest. So you're also going to be able to use this more often. At level 6 with the War God's Blessing, we reuse the old name, but in terms of functionality, it is brand new, because now we've made it so that you can burn Channel Divinity uses to cast Shield of Faith or Spiritual Weapon. We decided we wanted to make the War Domain Cleric the type of cleric who has the easiest time casting 2 of the most iconic low-level war-themed cleric spells, Shield of Faith and Spiritual Weapon. One defensive and the other one offensive. And so that means that the War Domain Cleric, more than any other cleric, will be able to shield their allies or bring out that spectral weapon to bash foes easier than any other kind of cleric.
This is a nasty spell list, too. Steel Wind Strike is in here.
Oh yeah, the spell list has been revised in ways that are really exciting.
Yeah.
So the Steel Wind Strike, this is a great example of how all the domain lists and other subclass spell lists have benefited from the expanded spell chapter, because Steel Wind Strike wasn't in the 2014 Player's Handbook. But when we made the decision to have this really spicy ranger spell appear in this book, we thought, oh, this is perfect for the War Domain Cleric as well.
Yeah.
Before we move on to their capstone, I should also mention that if the War Cleric uses their Channel Divinity to cast Shield of Faith or Spiritual Weapon, it doesn't require concentration.
Oh, nice.
And if you cast it, again, using your Channel Divinity rather than a spell slot. So extra spicy.
Yeah.
Finally,
It does make me ask the question, though, do they change Spiritual Weapon to where it requires concentration now? If so, that is a nerf, but it doesn't make it a go-to spell anymore.
Avatar of Battle even has been tweaked in that before you got resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage, but only those damage types when dealt by non-magical weapons. We've removed that non-magical weapon part so that now you just simply gain resistance to bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage. Meaning that this new version of the War Cleric, more than ever before, will be able to, be this priest character who is throwing down in the middle of battle.
When you pre-order the digital physical bundle, you also get an exclusive digital gold dragon.
All right, and I'll check once more just to make sure there's not an article that they released. And nope, it doesn't look like they have. So that is all they have on the new cleric. Overall, sounds like they made some interesting changes, some clarifications. Just cleaned up the class a little bit more, allowed some more player options to make yourself varied compared to other clerics that might be in your party. So yeah, pretty nice overall. But that's gonna be it for today's video. If you enjoyed, please feel free to like and subscribe if you want to see more of this content. Tomorrow we are going to take a look at the bard, so I will catch you all later. Have a good one.